Since the release of Playboi Carti's latest album, Whole Lotta Red, he has gained exponentially more fame, more attention, more streams, and more fame than he ever has in his entire career. Despite not dropping music for almost 2 years at this point, Playboi Carti has grown his reputation through his new label, Opium Records, with artists Ken Carson, Destroy Lonely, and Homixide Gang. Today I'm going to talk about how Opium is the perfect label for Playboi Carti and how it has boosted him to meteoric success. So, as you know, Whole Lotta Red, Playboi Carti's latest album, dropped December 25th, Christmas Day of 2020. Incredible day, and whether you hated the album or loved it at first, I think it's safe to say that this album has boosted Playboi Carti's career exponentially. Despite this album being, in my opinion, a masterpiece, some people were not feeling it at first, but over time people began to buy into the album, and I believe a lot of this has to do with Opium and their related artists. So, the first artist officially signed under Opium, Ken Carson. We know that Carti and Ken Carson have been friends for a while, but he had eventually signed him, and Ken Carson dropped his first release on Opium, Project X, in July of 2021. And this was kind of a taste of what the Opium label has to come. And this album was almost unanimously loved by fans of Playboi Carti, as they were really interested to see where this label was going to go. So of course they were checking out this first project, this debut Opium project, and it did not disappoint. And shortly after this, Playboi Carti was featured on Kanye West's Donda on the song Off the Grid and Junior, and this was Playboi Carti's last feature, last song release, anything, even to this day, still. Then it was announced that Destroy Lonely was officially signed to Opium, giving Opium another artist, and Ken Carson and Destroy Lonely were good friends at this point, and Playboi Carti kicked off the King Vamp tour in late 2021, which was originally the Narcissist tour, but that was a fucking lie. So, we got the King Vamp tour with surprise openers on these stops from Ken Carson, Destroy Lonely, and Homixide Gang, which is the next Opium artist we're going to get into later. And you never know who you would get on this tour. You could get one of those openers. My tour stop got Ken Carson. I saw Ken Carson for the first time there. Absolutely loved that. Knew all the words to his songs already because I was tapped in Project X, and that was just a great surprise. This tour obviously brought a lot of hype to Whole Lotta Red. People saw that this album was crazy when performed. The tours were selling out. Arenas were getting sold out. The shows were crazy, the mosh pits were crazy, and this was a huge spotlight for the Opium artists. And this tour was a promotion run pretty much for Whole Lotta Red and Opium as a whole, and I think it was obvious with how this ended up turning out. So after this tour, Playboi Carti announced that Homixide Gang is officially signed to Opium, and we know Homixide Gang had been friends with Carti. They were at the Whole Lotta Red release party and such, but now they are officially part of Opium. And then things were quiet for a little bit. Playboi Carti was doing a bunch of festivals, increasing his fame that way. Soon after, in July of 2020, Ken Carson dropped his highly anticipated album, pretty much a year from Project X since its release, called X, and this was pretty loved by the underground. If you look at the features, executive produced by Playboi Carti, features Destroy Lonely and Homixide Gang. As you can see, only Opium artists are featured on this project, which we'll get into later, and how this is kind of, tight circle. After all, Opium is playing into aesthetic, whether it be black clothing, vampires, random castles, cats. I don't know. This is the Opium aesthetic that has been building up, that has been extended from Whole Lotta Red onto all of these artists. And all of these artists who are signed kind of take bits and pieces from that and add their own personal flair to it, but they all come together to form the Opium aesthetic, which I think is really interesting from a label. You don't really see that much with these artists working together in such a communicative and homogenous way. So, to support this album, the Ken Carson tour has been announced for the X album with opener Destroy Lonely, and a few days after this tour started, Destroy Lonely dropped his album No Stylist with features from Ken Carson, keeping in that Opium aesthetic. Even on the tour, the Ken Carson Destroy Lonely tour, those are just Opium. Playboi Carti is leaving everything Opium. Just everything is Opium to him. Everything's just gotta, be consistent, and it's working for him. It is working. People are buying into it heavily. So then shortly after that, on Halloween, Ken Carson drops his XTENDED, which is the deluxe 2X with 5 extra songs, some grails in there, some highly anticipated tracks, and then almost a week later, Destroy Lonely drops his deluxe, also 5 new tracks, some highly anticipated tracks on there, No Stylist plus Ultra. And then about a week after that, Homixide Gang drops their first official release on Opium, Homixide Lifestyle, with features from, you guessed it, Destroy Lonely and Ken Carson. But there are also some other features on there who are part of this Homixide friend group. So that's not exactly Opium, but it kind of they kind of get a pass. They're part of the Homixide, I'm sure in the future, as these artists progress in the next few years, they will end up branching out and featuring with other artists, and it's just a matter of time before Carti gives them a feature, before they get featured on Carti's next album, whenever that may drop. But that's going to be a crazy time because What we're seeing now is the consistent building blocks to this Opium label, which people are buying into. I mean, these artists are the leaders of the underground, literally. Carti is still the king of this generation, even when he's not, if that makes sense. He's not even releasing music, but he still is. He has the vision, he has the ears for it, he has the marketing, he has the genius for it, and it's working for him and these artists he signed, clearly. You know, then Destroy Lonely would announce his No Stylist Tour with opening act Homixide Gang. Keeping it all Opium, it's crazy. It's honestly crazy to see how, you know, this is all working out together. And like I just said, I can only imagine in a few years where Opium's going to stand, because it's going to be crazy. I mean, it's going to be crazy. I mean, Carti has more eyes on him every day, more than he ever had, whether it be fans coming from Ken Carson, fans coming from Destroy Lonely, fans coming from Homixide Gang, or all of them together. If you're a fan of like one or two of these artists, you're probably a fan of all of them. And if you're a Carti fan, you're probably a fan of Opium. If you're an Opium fan, you are definitely a fan of Playboi Carti. So these artists help each other out. These artists are Playboi Carti's marketing, believe it or not. Playboi Carti is also their marketing, and it's kind of a symbiotic relationship right now that's working out for both of these parties, which I've never seen anything like this in any label since I've been paying attention to hip-hop. It's been interesting to see. I mean, the consistent aesthetic, consistent themes, consistent music, consistent sound. It's crazy, but that's about all I got for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to the bell so you don't miss any videos, any updates, any news like that. Go in the description, follow my TikTok, my Spotify, and not my Twitter, because it's suspended right now, but we're going to try to get it back. And yeah, it's been Brace. Peace.
Can I picture little Bobby, just a young'un run around with his bands, hammer in his hand, feeling like a man. Run for the pole, get the gun, put it in your